Beneath the bustling streets of New York City, a colossal effort is underway to revitalize its iconic subway system. But given its unique challenges and a history riddled with financial pitfalls, will this multi-billion-dollar plan truly succeed in transforming one of the world's most complex transit networks, or is it destined to repeat past mistakes? New York has long been a marvel for those of us at Infrastructure Watch. We've witnessed the city lift historic theaters 9 meters off the ground and construct massive skyscrapers atop active rail lines. We even stood by the vessel when many dismissed it as a failure. However, it's time to address the subway. It's unlike any other, truly special. While other subway systems might boast pristine, quiet carriages, New York's often presents a different picture. Imagine a Japanese company apologizing because one of its trains departed a mere 20 seconds early, a stark contrast to the hundreds of New Yorkers once trapped in an F train for nearly an hour, without air conditioning or light. Yet, we understand its unique charm. No world-famous artist ever found their breakthrough on the Hong Kong MTR, nor has the Riyadh Metro graced the cover of a seminal album. There's a massive, multi-billion-dollar plan to bring the subway to a normal standard, but the question remains, will it work? This isn't a museum, it's where spare parts are kept for the New York subway's ancient signaling system. Other networks don't have anything quite like this, but then, the New York subway isn't like other subways. Consider Hong Kong's MTR, it carries an average of 5 million people daily with a 99.9% punctuality rate. The 3 million New Yorkers who use their subway every day are not so fortunate. In 2024, over 40,000 delays were reported on just one line. It's easy to wonder how a train, on tracks with no traffic, could possibly get stuck. However, we must acknowledge the unique challenges the New York subway faces that other networks do not. Firstly, it's enormous, more than 2.5 times the length of the London Underground, and it boasts the second highest number of stations globally, after Beijing. Crucially, it operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. In its entire history, the New York subway has closed only 13 times. When the transit wheels grind to a halt in New York City, it's global news, including that memorable occasion when Conan O'Brien drove a bus. So, while we can forgive its wear and tear, significant help is on the way. The ambitious 2025 to 2029 capital plan, announced by MTA CEO John O'Lieber in September 2024, represents the single biggest spending initiative in New York's history. A staggering $68.4 billion is being allocated to the Metropolitan Transit Authority, which operates the subway. This is excellent news for locations like Brooklyn's Smith 9th Street Station. At more than 26.5 meters, it's the city's tallest station, often nicknamed the Mount Everest of subway stations, requiring commuters to navigate 2 long escalators and 2 flights of stairs. It is finally getting an elevator. The plan also means the phasing out of older trains in favor of modern ones like the R211, which began operating in the Bronx earlier this year. These new trains feature wider doors, digital screens, enhanced security with cameras in each car, and an open gangway design. Trains like these will replace the MTA's aging fleets of R46 and R44 trains on 6 lines. Incredibly, these older trains entered service in the 1970s and are notorious for breakdowns. On average, an R46 train fails every 74,000 kilometers, whereas its shiny new replacement can travel for 354,000 kilometers without fault. This upgrade should significantly address one of the subway's most persistent problems. Ask any New Yorker the worst thing about the subway, and they'll likely say it's not the rats, the occasional floods, or even the oyster shuckers, it's the endless delays. These delays are largely attributable to the subway's antiquated signaling system. But before we delve into that, how did the system reach this critical state in the first place? The last time the subway hit such a low was during the 1970s. Decades of underfunding and a broader city financial crisis left the subway on the brink of collapse. As the network became synonymous with crime and vandalism, New Yorkers abandoned it in droves. In 1977, it recorded the lowest ridership since the First World War. However, in the 1980s, this began to change. Billions of dollars were poured in through a massive capital program that replaced cars, rebuilt stations, and directly tackled the graffiti crisis. By the 1990s, ridership was higher than ever, and New York once again boasted a world-class subway system. But these good times were not to last. Ever since the various companies that comprised the subway were taken into public ownership in 1940, funding has been, at best, inconsistent. By the mid-1990s, just as subway trains were taking a victory lap, things were once again headed for a standstill. It would take an exhaustive amount of time to detail everything that plagued the subway over the next couple of decades, so let's take a quick ride on the express train to financial ruin. We depart at City Hall in 1994, when Mayor Rudolph Giuliani cut $400 million from the MTA's budget. This greenlit similar cuts at city and state levels, and in 1997, its federal funding was entirely eliminated. Next stop, Wall Street, where some very clever bankers had the ingenious idea of lending the MTA money. $85 million in fees and commissions later, the MTA had plenty of cash, but also a mountain of debt. In the 2000s, the MTA was spending more on debt servicing than on maintenance, causing the network's infrastructure to deteriorate. When the 2008 financial crash occurred, even more money drained from the system. Then came vanity projects, such as Fulton Street Station, where $1.4 billion were pumped into a single station without allocating funds for new cars or basic maintenance. Even stranger, the MTA reportedly had to bail out a ski resort at one point. Things seemed to be looking up in 2017 when Governor Andrew Cuomo declared a state of emergency on the subway. Transport Supremo Andy Byford arrived with a comprehensive plan to fix the crippled network once and for all. New Yorkers were so impressed they nicknamed him Train Daddy. However, he resigned a couple of years later after Cuomo stripped him of his powers. This brings us to the present day, explaining how a situation like this can arise, where any modernization effort necessitates scavenging parts to maintain the ancient system still in service. With the exception of all but 2 lines, the subway runs on a fixed block signaling system. This method divides the track into blocks. When a train enters a block, the system flags it as occupied, maintaining a safe distance by creating a buffer zone behind it that following trains cannot enter. It is one of the oldest ways of managing railway traffic and is very safe. However, it is far from efficient. The blocks vary in length, and there is no direct communication between the signaler and the driver, meaning no one truly knows the exact location of a train. Consequently, the system is inherently overcautious and does not allow for a high frequency of trains. In essence, it's safe but slow and restrictive. Fortunately, this system is being replaced with communication-based train control, CBTC. With CBTC, trains transmit their location, speed, and direction directly to the controller. This allows a dynamic buffer to be created around the moving train, reducing the amount of empty space on the track and enabling other trains to travel more closely and at higher frequencies. Over the next 4 years, 121 kilometers of CBTC signaling will be installed on 9 lines. For those unconvinced, this system is already yielding impressive results elsewhere on the network. Beginning in the early 2000s, both the L and 7 lines were upgraded with CBTC and have since become the most reliable lines on the network, with on-time performance exceeding 90%. Another significant upgrade, though perhaps not as universally popular, involves new ticket barriers. In 2021, the MTA lost over $1 billion in revenue due to fare evasion, a problem exacerbated by the subway's ancient turnstiles and open station designs. A pilot scheme for new gates began in 2024. While several options are still being considered, the MTA has reported significant progress. Turnstile jumping is down 60% at stations where shields and fins have been installed, and the MTA announced a 30% network-wide drop in fare evasion from late 2024 to early 2025. As substantial as the lost revenue from fare evasion is, it's not the only problem the subway faces. A full quarter of the funding for the new capital plan comes from a hugely controversial congestion charge. Drivers are charged up to $9 when they enter Manhattan at or below 60th Street. Since its introduction in January, the charge has become a lightning rod for political challenges and lawsuits from several high-profile New Yorkers. In February this year, the Trump administration took the MTA to court in an attempt to cancel the tax, with critics calling the plan a slap in the face. A number of other lawsuits at the state level, including 8 from New Jersey, are currently making their way through the courts. Officials in New Jersey are fiercely fighting to stop congestion pricing, viewing the toll as an unfair burden. For commuters on the other side of the Hudson, who account for 250,000 daily car trips into the city, getting in by rail is hardly a viable option. NJ Transit is underfunded, overcrowded, and notoriously unreliable, and the century-old tunnels into Penn Station groan under the strain of hundreds of thousands of riders every day. From their perspective, they are being asked to pay for the MTA's problems while their own rail system crumbles. An injunction has allowed the city to continue collecting the toll pending the outcome of the lawsuits. However, should it lose, there is no clear plan to replace this single biggest portion of the budget. To compound these challenges, some question whether the colossal $68 billion price tag will even be enough. The new CBTC signaling system has worked wonders where it's been rolled out, but it has come at a huge cost. The Line 7 upgrade ran 5 years over schedule and $157 million over budget. Similar upgrades currently underway on other lines are already years behind schedule. It seems almost inevitable that this upgrade plan will encounter similar pitfalls, because New York has some of the highest construction costs anywhere in the world. Building anything here takes longer and costs far more than it should. The reasons are deeply embedded in the system: restrictive labor rules, convoluted procurement processes, and multiple layers of bureaucracy all add years and billions to even the simplest projects. The Second Avenue subway is a textbook example. What was intended to be a straightforward 3.2 kilometer extension ended up costing more than $4.5 billion, making it the most expensive stretch of subway track ever built at over $1.24 billion per kilometer. Contrast this with the Grand Paris Express, currently under construction beneath the French capital. When completed, it will stretch for 200 kilometers and serve 3 million passengers a day at 68 new stations, all for just over half the cost of the MTA upgrade plan. But this is New York, and New York will do what New York does. The capital plan may very well succeed. With such a massive amount of investment, it's reasonable to expect a significant upgrade in service. Yet, even if every dollar is well spent, the subway will likely never achieve absolute perfection. And you know what? That's perfectly fine, because the New York subway possesses a unique magic, something that transcends the mere functionality of regular trains. For all its faults, it is as much a part of New York as its sky-high buildings or its exorbitant rents. So, while we fervently hope it improves, we also hope it never loses its irreplaceable character.